Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Well, let's do another basic movie review. This time around, we're going to talk about one basic type of movie that everybody is talking about. I mean, literally everyone. I mean, me, my folks, the entire basic globe, basically bound treasure basic of this considered basic movie that people are talking about. And you know I'm referring to when I'm wearing this and this, along with a little basically of my collection of basically one type of film I'm talking about. Yep, we're going to talk about the most considerable basically, insanely basically face-off film that we never thought we were going to have. Never really thought in many years in film industry and all this stuff. We're going to talk about Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Talk about my thoughts about how I felt about the film, about the idea of the basically the come about of the film itself, and some of the bad and some of the good moments of the film. So that's what we're going to talk about today on Empress Want to Be Reviews. Welcome back. Okay, so what did I thought about the Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice film? What did I thought that had some elements to basically have a decent, good, successful film? And what are the bad moments first though? Well, let's talk about the bad stuff firstly. So, what did not like about this movie in general as basically as a whole? Well, we start off, of course, our beginning basically our main film basically in the origin of the Batman. Now, okay, now of course this is maybe need not be a big issue, but we already know about the origin of Batman, Richard. We already know how his parents got shot at basically from the movie theater. And of course, the Batman Begins, of course, it started basically, the young Bruce Wayne, go to this local basic theater, and his parents are going to, to event to see the basic premiere theater, whatnot. And of course, the whole basic a murder basically shot basically Bruce's parents. And Zack Snyder basic film generally based, well, of course, I guess we will go back to basically to the '89 film, which is right here. Sort of is trying to have that sort of element, Richard, though, because really towards at the middle of the end, we do sort of get a little bit of basic Bruce's origin, sort of how his parents did get shot by basically not just basically a murderer, but in that the potential basis stylized in the Tim Burton, it's more obviously kind of like, okay, it reveals the murder basically of Bruce's parents, while in the Zack Snyder basically Batman versus Superman flick, it does give it a little bit more basically of the origin. But here's the thing about it. It starts off with, of course, seeing of course the natural base of effort of Bruce's basic parents in the coffins, about to be be butchered or basically being buried in, of course, in the Wayne Manor area, which is kind of very similar of the Christopher Nolan basic style. But when you have Bruce Wayne basic parents being buried based on his basic front porch in the Wayne Manor area, so that makes sense there. But for Zack Snyder, he kind of did it very well differently. I think it makes it seem like he's trying to make Batman's origin in his universe and that kind of stuff, because they're going to this basically DC universe Ultimate Universe style, which if it makes sense, and it pretty much it's okay, but like we already know about how much origins we need, Richard. Like, do we need to basically know the basically the original origin of basically Bruce basically tried to base his storyline again? I mean, it's not a bad thing. It just like it feels like it has somewhat basically not really trying to really tell a basically decent one story, because this is a direct sequel through Man of Steel, which is right here. Because it is a direct sequel of that, because it does kind of have the original sort of style. But we just kind of get the sort of as the origin of basically Batman's story, and it's just completely just basically kind of came out of nowhere. So we start off basically, of course, him basically feeling guilty of his death, of his parents' death, and we sort of kind of like start out basically not just basically him kind of like saying his farewells to his parents. But he kind of ran, like, the actor who plays the young Bruce Wayne kind of ran off of the woods and actually fell in basically this kind of basically hole basically in the back in this basically scene. Now, it does compare basically with the Neil Adams Batman basically stylized, and it does give basically that non-basically of the Nolanverse. So you do have sort of that residual amount of Way style, and it does kind of bring it a little bit more the very considered stylized, which is that both Neil Adams and the Nolan basic versus basic origin kind of collide one another basically for Zack Snyder is trying to direct. And we do get that original kind of scene, and we see the young basic Bruce Wayne kind of like rise up of the cave and just have this swarm of bats surrounding him, and it's kind of like picks him up off the basis of the feet and basically kind of rise him up, which is very uncommon basic for basically Batman story, but it does kind of seem like it has some points of it. Then it comes to basically that everyone hates Superman originally. Now, of course, this was during the destruction before originally of Zod's basic war machine, or basically whatever kind of war base machine, whatever you call it, actually can destroy basically the tie basically the population of the Earth, and to create basically Krypton basically in the planet Earth, basically as a core. So, but that being said, it really kind of like seeing like people really have disregard base of Superman. Now we get the scene where basically, of course, with Lois Lane, and we have a Jimmy Olsen. Yeah, if you did not notice, basically the critics, or basically anyone who did not really pay much attention to the credits, that's Jimmy Olsen, and basically from basically with Lois Lane, played by Amy Adams. And it actually is quite just like really just insane that you just imagine for that actor playing that character, because in the of course Man of Steel we don't see Jimmy basically in the Man of Steel movie. We just see this new kind of upcoming basic co-worker named Jenny Olsen, which is kind of very uncommon originally though, or basically for basic work. But I don't know, I just think it's kind of very well a little over fast, because we just announced basically Jimmy already in the film, and we just don't know if he's going to basically be the main purpose of the film, or he just basically is going to be killed off, which he does. He gets shot in the face. Now I expect the original thought that was not Jimmy. I thought that was just basically, of course, just a general basically average photographer just tag along with basically Lois and maybe get himself shot at. But as I did look at the basic credits, yeah, that was the actor who played Jimmy, and I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like that's a little bit too much fast post basically introducing Jimmy. He's already killed off already, and then of course with that being said, it just feels like, it really feels like it just didn't seem that they hold that well at all. Like that's really kind of what really kind of irritated me about that, because it just blows my mind thinking to myself, why would they just kill off Jimmy if they knew basically he's not going to basically be a part of the story? Like seriously, Warner Brothers, and even for you, Tyson, I'm not saying that as a director basically being so obviously ashamed of you, but it's just that, if you look at Christopher Nolan or basically Tim Burton, they were kind of like uncontributed basic directors who knew how to create a very well interesting story and make it more excitement for audience and fans alike. But if you're trying to kill off a person that is basically only have a couple basically minutes of screen time, that's a little bit too much, really much for basically on people's opinions on the buck. But this is how basically kind of stuff they just what Zack Snyder is trying to go with, and it just seemed like it just really, it just seemed like it just was way too fast. Now, of course, we get a scene where basically Henry Cavill, basically who's playing Superman and Clark Kent, actually is basically didn't have much to do, let alone really. I think the only problem about Henry's character is Superman's not really the typical, like all-American Boy Scout kind of person. He's not your typical Boy Scout. This version of Superman is more sort of like don't care about the war politics, don't care about people's lives or anything else. He does care. He just does have the capability of what Christopher Reeve did. I know, of course, people say that Christopher Reeve was more of the Boy Scout person. Well, that was part of the comics, because throughout basic history, Superman has always been basic to me as a Boy Scout. Big blue Boy Scout to look out for people one another. Even though he could not save everybody in basically the entire globe in many ways, but he was, of course, a very true base of a hero who was doing his way to try to help and trying to do what is right and what is wrong. But here in basically Man of Steel and Maze of Dawn of Justice, he's like playing as I hate to say it, as much as I really love basically Henry Cavill's performance as Clark Kent, when he plays Superman, he just sometimes doesn't feel like he doesn't have much care. It's like he's like Dr. Manhattan all of a sudden. It's like going back, okay, we're going to that kind of Dr. Manhattan stylized where you have Dr. Manhattan just going basically don't care about what people think about him, don't care about what he does or everything. He's kind of just unmanaged, just really have no provision whatsoever to think about what he's going to, if he cares about people or if he cares for himself. So, the only thing that was so kind of very obviously is Lawrence Fishburne. I'm really horrible with actor names, but they're mine. Didn't really try to tell Clark Richard to not go over basically the Batman storyline because it's not worth their time to find this vigilante in Gotham. Now, here's the craziest thing I found very well heard about. That Gotham and Metropolis are twined one another, which really is kind of like, you really are trying to make two probably fictional cities that makes it like it's like New York to, I guess, New Jersey or basically Staten Island style kind of way. I don't know how DC is trying to corrupt basically their way to basically stylize basically of both how really you of what your characters basically in the cities. But if they were doing that, Richard would start Central City, like of course like Green Arrow and basically who had basically been that proper style, they would probably be twined one another. Don't you think? It's very kind of uncommon to basically get that very off my mind, really knowing that why would be two cities would be collide one another, because like you say, if you basically get killed off basically by Batman, you can easily basically get really knocked up basically and get yourself killed off basically by Superman, basically tearing around basically buildings. But I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's kind of very obviously one of the things I did not mind for. It just kind of really got me confused on why would they basically have two cities that are fan fiction cities, but make it seem like they are close to one another, like kind of like really certain basic cities that are twined with one another. They actually really are sort of basically about a block a mile, or basically a full-on basic mile, which are basically getting to that location to the basic other location. So I don't know. It was kind of really confusing me. Then it comes to basically of the one thing I find very hard to read, and there's a lot of things I could obviously with it, but there's probably one thing I probably have a very hard find about was I'm trying to look for a trying to say. Well, I'm not saying about the whole fight basically between Batman and Superman. I just think that the whole base of that is just basically been going throughout century through comics, because we always know how these superheroes collide with one another and have a sort of as a face-off who is probably better and who is probably is basically the worst. And that one thing that would kind of really throws me off, and I think it's because this is probably critics really, is that people really disregard about this film. Now, like I said, this came out in 25th in March, and me and my mom, we just actually saw it we actually had a kind of thing about how does this movie complex, Richard, between you look at, the '89 film towards the basic, well, I guess probably for remember that towards the '79 film of Superman and the '89 film of Batman. So I don't know if it just the way they were trying to provide provision, because if you look at the original basic Batman, well, if you look at the basically the Superman and Batman films in the early and mid '70s and '80s, and you look basically back at them, it really kind of gives it more kind of like a decent, well, good story. It just has a different type of origin. It has a different type of basic of mental basic of style, and of course, people find that the '78 movie was more very well '70ish, very well hippie-ish, and very well kind of like stylized, but it was more stylized because it was really that we were supposed to see. And for the '89 film, like the Batman '89 film, you get the dark humor, you do get the dark basic story. You also get very well specific characters that you respected and never thought basically they would probably be in film. And I'm not calling basically with Batman Forever or Batman Robin. I'm saying about the Batman '89 film to the of course, Batman Returns from, I think, was in 1992 or '93. I think somewhere around that year or so. But it was actually quite very obviously just that was it. But when people kind of go off of base of the Man of Steel film, I was kind of thinking to myself, it's not bad. The only thing that is, the Man of Steel movie, it is sort of as the mini-series of the Man of Steel John Byrne style. It's more really give that style-wise. Because I think when I was just when I first heard about that we're going to get a new Superman movie, and they're going to try to retell the story, I was kind of looking just hopefully they will probably do a John Byrne kind of way style. And they sort of kind of did. They sort of kind of get the origin kind of like sort of like that way. And it kind of makes a little bit more sense there. While it's not called Superman, it's called Man of Steel. So you can tell the difference between the stylized of the comic, but make it more very well sort of like real world style or something. But when I heard that we put all these basic ads in this film, I was very kind of like, I saw Sears, I saw basically 7-Eleven. There were so many basic, of course, add-ons that people really considered that Man of Steel was a flop, but it was a successful film. I mean, honestly, to be fair, I mean, I don't know, it just seemed like it just kind of puts somewhat based as a decent good film. Now, it's a point based a good film, though, but usually with the base a different type of way of how you look at it. And honestly, to be fair, I don't have against that. I'm all for basically films that involves with boring basic characters, but unless the characters make interesting moments or have somewhat basically a tragic moment basically when we have a Richard. But when you get basically Jonathan Kent dying basically from a tornado, saving that dog, we all know basically how that happens. Everybody will get their basic beloved pets out of their car or basically in a basic waterfall or everything else. They will basically get this stuff caught up basically in a storm. And we all know how that kind of happens. But it's kind of like really interesting because very obviously people find that very well as successful a film as it is. People really dissatisfied with Dawn of Justice. Now I know, of course, this is definitely not told in the comics. Now there's a difference between the comic book version of these characters and there's the movie version of these characters of the comic books. Now, the comic books basic characters in the comics are very well, story-wise. They're very well telling the story, very well give you more open base of continuum of their adventures, of their, of course, and that's perfectly fine for that being all for basically over there. Now, for superhero films, like generally, for Superman, Batman, and the rest of the others, they're just kind of really make it more sort of that mix all that together into one film. But you have some elements that kind of thinking, okay, that probably looks like basically from the comic, or that kind of scene looks like from the comic, or that that character kind of has that remind me basic moment of lines or dialogue of the comic, but you just don't get that though. Now I don't know how people really consider that Dawn of Justice is a bad film. Now I don't really go to these movie basically websites like Rotten Tomato or basically of course movie rental or any of these kind of multiple movie reviews websites. But when I look at Rotten Tomato, basically they got only basically 38%. That kind of makes me think to myself, the movie's already been out already. It's it sort of really bothers me knowing there's a fine to basically season one line that you just kind of thinking this movie has already been released and now people are starting ranting about it. People are starting going to really consider this movie as a bad research for basically from the comic book industry. And I will sort of kind of disagree at that, but I have to disagree at that because let's face it, we don't get to see anything like this with basically with any kind of dark humor. Don't get me wrong, Batman has always been a dark humor throughout, of course, base of history, and he has been very opposite in doing that, Richard, from of course to from basically a vigilante crime fighter to a kid-friendly basic, but going back to the vigilante stylized, and that's kind of fine, and that shows the basis of his character. While Superman, he's more the happy-go-lucky basic, of course, well, how can I say, like I said before, the basic Boy Scout, but they make him seem like he's basically the dark humor now. He's more going to his dark routes. But Superman had never been dark at all. He never been yeah, there are moments he had his moments of basically being sort of really and have himself Richard being in a very tragic basis character, but he wasn't tragic. He wasn't really considerate. He was just kind of like a very confused, very well kind of basically trying to find his place in the world. Because, like I said, let's face it, when you have a visitor from another planet, you are, of course, basically guiding yourself more obviously, joining for basically for what it is of being a person from basically from another planet, and you just come by and have your basic problems come into problem ours. But I have to kind of disagree to many comic book viewers who have read comics and everything. And so, like I said before, I have no against the basic of basic people who have read comics. I self-include read comics before when I started basically getting used to it. But I just think that it feels like it's not fair for even for Zack Snyder and for Ben Affleck and all the people who have worked on this film. It's really not fair. I think it's really kind of hard enough that this movie, while it still kind of holds together, it does kind of holds the very much, but there are moments that you kind of make you scratching your head thinking, why can't they just really keep the very elements of these characters like you can see in the comics in that style? Well, here's the starters. They're not going to go with that route because let's face it, other people have other ideas of what they see these characters are like. I mean, Zack Snyder, he's just one of those visual directors who really just go in visual basically stylized and fabricate on his own style. I mean, everybody who has a different means of art and different means of different what style they go in with. It just basically how we're gonna see them. But I don't know. It's just really not fair for the director trying to basically say he's not trying to go to a comic booky style. He's just going to a very okay. He's focused on more obviously of Superman's arc, but having Batman and basically Wonder Woman into basically in the picture was along with basically Lex Luthor and of course Perry White and basically and of course Lois Lane, and it's pretty obviously that's really because he's going with because he's going more visual style. He's more obviously a visual director. He's more obviously idea like basically he wants to try to put in and add on basically that stuff and mix it into one film. Now, I guess I did talk about a little bit of the bad stuff first, though. There are a couple more bad stuff I wanted to basically talk about, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows basically what I'm going to say basically and everything else. But let's talk about the good things. Now, the good thing I like about basically the Dawn of Justice, I think was probably the Batmobile was really well designed. I give it basically because it was really keep it very well stylized. Like I say, I say myself personally, I'm not a huge fan of the Tumblr Batmobile. It's not just because it's just a bad, vehicle. It's just not my kind of a vehicle that I think that, for what Batman, because I mean, I know Batman, he does go to the military, but he does go to, this very hardcore base of military kind of like realistic basic weapons and real life basic, kind of vehicles that you can actually see basically in the real world. But I prefer the Batmobile in the Dawn of Justice because it does give that sort of Arkham basic game stylized. And I said before, what I like about this film is the fight sequence of basic Batman. When we get to see Batman doing his fight choreography, it is sort of stylized basically of the Arkham games. When you have Batman beating up basically these crooks so properly, easily, brutally basically moments that you kind of thinking this is probably more interesting and more entertaining. Because I was very kind of really interesting when I saw the trailer. I was very kind of curious about how they really going to make it more sort of as Arkham a little bit stylized, but keep it more of as like Nolan verse towards a little bit of sort of as like the Watchmen style. Kind of give, you know, a Watchmen kind of feed factor to it, and then kind of smush it basically in one together with Arkham and basically games, and along with basically with the Nolan style. So that was kind of fun, Richard. I thought Richard kind of, I thought the costume design was pretty well decent. You know, Henry Cavill's basic Superman suit. They did modify it to make it more, obviously, more changeable from the Man of Steel movie. And for Batman, I kind of have to say, as much as I say that the Batman suit, Batsuit, is not bad, Richard, for Ben Affleck to wear, it's just that, I don't know, the big emblem on his chest, I don't know, it's not really bad. It just seems like, I don't know, it just kind of makes me, nah, it's okay. But I do like the gauntlets though, I do love the cowl. It did give basic, of course, Affleck sort of has a really good expression based feeling of the cowl. But it just feels like with that whole voice change in Monster Room, it's like, do you bleed? It's like really kind of thing. Can you just go to your deeper, basically deeper Baba voice? I mean, I know Christian Bale, when people talk about Christian Bale's Batman voice, they kick their base and make jokes every single time. I mean, every time we go on, well, I'm like, for instance, like it's just like, you know, he goes to his baritone voice. I mean, Kevin Conway, like I say, people say Kevin Conway, he goes to his deep, dark, amazing number voice, but make it more seem like it's kind of like he's sort of as Batman, but keep it based more as Bruce Wayne kind of style, and keep the voice very well minimum. While, you know, Christian Bale and of course Mike Keaton, you know, Mike Keaton, his voice is sort of really kind of tight tone when he is portraying as Batman. And it makes kind of sense though, because his voice is more kind of a little bit deepened, but it's very well soft, very well kind of like very slowly based of his vocal cords. While, like I said before, you know, Christian Bale, like I said, they go to that basic rap version of his voice, but like I say, Ben Affleck's voice, doing that voice over changing over the cow, it just, I don't know, I just think that's not how I see how a Batman would use. I mean, of course, it's kind of new, but I don't know. It's just never really kind of like that. Like I say, even the Batcave is very, very well nice and concerned. Now we don't get to see much basically in Wayne Manor, and that's understandable. We'll probably see that version until when we see a solo Batman film that Ben Affleck and of course the producers and basically Warner Bros. Are working on, and they got the script version already done and basically just have to basic film. But I know is that once we do get the inside of the Batcave, it's very well stylized. It's very well, sort of as kind of level line based level. That you have the trophy room, which is basically keeps Batman's his trophies and his basically his, you know, his crime on based on in the streets of Gotham. You know, of course, basically keeping, you know, certain basic items that he and Robin kind of basically, you know, investigate and solve and actually, you know, stop crime. And that was kind of nice. And there was a little add-on basically of the Robin suit, which I kind of figured it probably was Jason Todd basically Robin suit, not Tim Drake or not Robin or even Damian's basic Robin suit. It was probably definitely was Jason Todd basic suit, because let's face it, in the actual basic comic, The Death of the Family, he actually does die based on that thing. And it does kind of make sense that maybe that was a slogan, knowing that they're going to probably put some basic decent what they're going to do for the Suicide Squad. Because I know is once we get our Suicide Squad in basically until next month, or probably another month though, we'll definitely probably see how can they would basically explain how Jason died, and basically explain about that costume and displayed originally in Bruce Wayne's basically Batman's, you know, shrine base of his trophy room, and have the little bits of words they say, the joke's on you, Batman, ha ha ha, and you know, it really kind of makes a lot more sense there. For Perry White and Lois Lane, you know, I thought, you know, Amy Adams and based on Lauren Fishman, as much as I say before, he didn't have much to do recently in the film. I will say Lauren Fishman, as much as I really like the guy and everything else, and he's done so well with other movies based in the past, it just seemed like he didn't have much to do basically in Dawn of Justice. He just kind of shows in, and when he's trying to explain that to Clark, you don't get to decide basically to try to find this basic what rights basically, but you don't get to, how can I say this? You don't get to decide of what basically you just think that's right or good or wrong. No one cares about Clark Kent face up taking on Batman, and it was kind of really this kind of awkward, but knowing why he would say that. Like, clearly you're talking to Superman though, and he could probably take him down basically by a punch or snap him by the neck, but I don't know, he just didn't have much to do, let alone he just kind of like tried to have people survive in this movie. And he would probably look at the script and think to myself, there's not much I can really do now. I'm just basically just hopefully we'll probably get a couple line or two, and then pretty much it. For Amy Adams play Lois Lane, well, okay. Well, I will say that she did have some moments though. She's always basically kind of like the dangerous stress, trying to be saved by Superman, of course, and I don't want to go into too much, because we all know eventually that's her basic mode of character. But I think the one thing she was trying to do, when we see Batman and Superman face off, she was trying to drown the Kryptonite Spare, or basically the staff, whatever you call it, actually dropping down and basically in bottom base of the, I guess the bottom base of the, what is in basically in that building, and just kind of basically go back and get it basically until basically when they reveal Doomsday. Now, of course, that would be said, it actually makes it kind of very well, makes sense for, Lois to be a hero for basically having it, but no, she just, of course, is basically being a dangerous stress. And that's kind of very sad thing for Duke, but, she does have some moments. But I will say this, the one good thing I will say about this movie was having Wonder Woman in that film. Now, people say that Gal Gadot was too short, she was too skinny to play the role, she can't really consider to basically do this role, but honestly, to be fair, I'm really sick and tired of fans, or even basic critics alike, thinking about beauty, about a person cannot play a role. Now, if any kind of sort of actor, or any actress can play a role of a character or a superhero, whatever, they can sort of do it. Because look at Christian Bale. He was meant to play playing basically Batman, and look at how that turned out to be. Now, when I saw Gal Gadot in the Wonder Woman outfit, I was looking forward to that she used her lasso of truth. I was really seeing that moment that she had her lasso, she got her tiara, she got her basically her bracelets, because I actually thought her fighting sequence was really well done, really give it a very well high basic performance, because I really was looking forward for Wonder Woman to be in this film. Because, for starters, I did not know she was going to be in it. I knew based in the trailer, but I didn't know she was going to be there's only a few minor basic scenes, but she was basically, she was usually just basically being Diana. She was just never being her suit at all. She was saying she was tired basically being, a superhero. She was trying to be a hero because she lost someone basically. We'll probably see that basically when we get to our Wonder Woman movie. And it actually was kind of very well, kind of topic for a character, because I only seen her before in basically one of those Fast and Furious movies, and that's all I know of that she does, though. But I will say this: Gal Gadot, she is a decent, good actress as well as she could play it, because I mean, there's a fine, good sort of reason that she is up for the role, because she has this very nice comparison of style she's brought Diana. I think she's trying to be a little bit more flirtatious with Bruce. She's trying to kind of like be a little bit more, I don't know how you can properly put the word though, but a little bit more kind of like attraction to basically give, she's attractive, she's very mysterious, very mystique, but also she's a very going to be a good person that she wants to try to basically help out. And then when she does come out of retirement and then put on the Wonder Woman outfit, I was really just hoping she would use that lasso of truth. Because we do see her use her bracelets, which is give it the kind of like, I guess, the Thundershock basic kind of mode, because of course the bracelets and the tiara and along with the lasso of truth are made up for magic. And of course that's basically part of the basic of Wonder Woman's slogan, because her basic powers is based by my magic. So that was pretty much showing a little bit more considered. But I was really like that originally, and I thought that was really considered there. For Lex Luthor, played by, I forgot what his name is, but I know who he is though. I thought he did kind of good. I mean, he kind of just had sort of as really kind of put in a certain amount of way. I felt like he's playing himself. I think that's kind of really probably the one problem is I think people find hard about this movie. And I think it was not because of the ending. But we all know eventually Superman's gonna come back. He's gonna come back eventually. He's gonna eventually come back in basically in Justice League, hopefully, because let's face it, he's gonna basically have it. But I think it's kind of interesting because he just seemed like they really make him play his own way of playing Lex Luthor. Which, when we get to the party scene, it's like, well, it's sort of as really kind of hard on based on him because he is trying to basically do what he can to play this character. He is doing it, but it just seems like he's just really just don't feel like he's not trying to be evil or basically, but he is trying to plot of a plot and basically playing of a scheme to have Superman, Clark, basically I know who you are, Clark Kent, I know who you are, I know who you are. You're basically, of course, have any way to not protect your identity this time, and I know where Bruce Wayne is. So it's kind of interesting because he kind of knows Bruce Wayne's Batman. He knows that Clark Kent is Superman. So I don't know if he knows Diana basically is Wonder Woman. Maybe probably does. I don't know. But the way he basically tried to portray and basically blackmail Superman by taking two women, first taking basically Martha Kent, and then taking in basically, of course, Lois, and push her on the balcony, and then Superman save her, and then Superman comes in basically trying to really talk to basically Lex, and saying basically it's time to really go back to which. But of course he has a plot basically. He has of course a plan that he basically can soon try to do. He's going to either basically have Superman takes basically Batman's head and show that he will basically prove that he's more inches, or Martha Kent will die. Now, there are two reasons I find it very hard to believe that why can they just have Lex just kidnap Lois Lane? Because let's face it, Lois was the proper main of the story. I mean, of course, Clark or Superman, if you pronounce it, basically keep on saving her and saying basically, of course, in his own biological, well, basically his adopted mother. But it actually is quite just really interesting because when we get to the whole fight sequence, he's already planning a secondary plot to basically, of course, I'm releasing to a new basic idea that basically stop you, Superman. So I'm gonna release Doomsday, and it was kind of really interesting to see. He's like take the kryptonite basic scalpel and basically cut basically Zod's basically I guess fingerprints and try to place it on his own, and it was quite interesting. He cut his basically entire hand to basically to kind of like I guess use Zod's basically body corpse and transfer towards into Doomsday. I believe because. It just kind of feels like it really kind of over that being over over there. So we get to basically the whole fight basically of Doomsday along with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and then we get to of course basically our killing basically room where we know this is taking basically to a little bit more of the comics where we have the death of Superman. We're seeing of course death basically of Superman getting killed off and being beaten by Doomsday. Here in the film, it sort of plays that way, but it starts off basically him, surrounded basically of the kryptonite spear, Krypton. Then the only way to kill it is basically use the kryptonite staff. So Superman used the staff that basically Lois tried to guide out from the bay, and of course just ramming basically Doomsday's basic entire body, and Doomsday have the kind of basis of the nerve, just basically stabs Superman so they both are dead. But here's the difference. We all know eventually he's going to come back. Now, there is a reason why this is called Dawn of Justice, because I believe they're going to get ready to do a basic Justice League movie because they got this entire basic idea. This is before when we had this basically discussion ever before we basically knew basically when they released the film, we probably had no idea that we're going to be a face-off between two superheroes collide one another and have a decent world fight-off. Now, I thought generally it was just going to be a fight-off, face-off between two superheroes who are basically up against one another and have Star basically as a film experience. But when I heard that it was going to be a Justice League movie, I'm thinking to myself, this is definitely going to be a direct basis. I wouldn't say prequel or sequel, but probably someone is either basically a continuation of having a Justice League team up, because we're going to get Suicide Squad. We're definitely going to get that version basically come into the next couple months, or basically how we basically pronounce it. And then we're definitely going to have, of course, our basic Wonder Woman. We're going to have a Cyborg basically coming basically in that next year. Have a Flash, Aqualand, and once we get to Justice League Part 1 and Part 2, it does kind of makes a little bit more sense there that we're definitely going to have our basically a decent world face-off between Suicide Squad to basic Justice League. So I don't know how Warner Bros. Is going to really compete basically with doing that, but I know for a fact, and maybe this is my theory, that we're going to see two basic collide films that's going to be released next year and make it more obviously sort of an excitement for the audience and thinking we're going to see a decent world team up. So just like basically what they did basically for Marvel. Marvel did basically the same thing as they did. Have a basic bunch of basic group of superheroes team up and basically kind of have a face-off, or basically have a decent world considered picture film. So yeah, I know I should probably say a little bit more, Richard, but that's only I could basically clear up for by then. I know I didn't want to give away too much spoils. I kind of really did. If I did, then sorry. I basically did not mean to know I was spoiling for you. But honestly, to be fair, I think the film it is an okay film. Now, like I said, there are basic flaws. There are basically considerable flaws out there to really make this film sort of as trying to tell a story. But with the whole basic scenes and the whole basic stuff that really is great, I don't think it's not a bad film. The only thing that is really considered is the fans. It's basically, of course, fans are really considered they want to expect to see this as a face-off. And to me, I never expected to think it was going to be. To me, I thought it was just going to be sort of as maybe bringing, other superheroes basically into the film. Just trying to make a nice guest appearance, like they did basically, of course, with Iron Man and basically Captain America and Thor, and even of course what was that movie called? The Hulk film, and having them collide one another into one basic film. But here it's going to play that way, which is in some way when we get to our film. But like I said, the movie itself, and I'm not going to basically choosing sides and everything. They're just moments you have to really just say that there are good bases in this film, and there are going to be some bad moments and bad basic decisions that what DC, Zack Snyder, and the rest of the other people who did this film will probably very often be responsible, and knowing that they're going to make probably a ton of money of this basic film, and clearly once this movie is so well hitting based in the box office, it's kind of really just probably going to make really conservative base of what base of the film is going to be. And like I said before, I enjoy it. I really had no problem with it. The only thing it was just it was a little bit more fast-paced, just a bit, but it was trying to really give me, understand how much we were desperate going to see a face-off. But, to be fair and to be very honest, I don't know, I just think that it was an okay film. Like I say, it's better than basically Man of Steel. I'll give it that, because Man of Steel didn't really have much to do. I mean, I will give it, basically it does kind of give a decent eye on basically of the Man of Steel miniseries comic, but to be fair and to be very conservative, I don't know, it just had some basically I did like and some of them I just didn't. So yeah, that's more I can say about that though. I will say this: if you are disagreeing basically of my consideration basically this movie is good, just don't. I mean, I'm just speaking as opinion, knowing that there are moments that are just not kind of my feeling based of this film. But there are moments I did enjoy, and I'm not gonna basically just argue with that or basically get all upset about it because, like I say, this is a very well basic what Warner Brothers and DC Comics is trying to do because they really have a hard time basically doing with basically giving fans what they want. And honestly, to be fair, I don't know. I just feel like the film itself needs to be somewhat basically try to really tell well story. And if you're gonna try to do a face-off version though, do a face-off. But if you're not gonna do a face-off, just don't. So there you go. So that is it of my review of Batman, Superman, Dawn of Justice. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it was that would basically explain to you. And if you feel anything you want to basically comment about versus what I left out and what I did, please leave a comment based on down below. I'll definitely would give you a chance to discuss about what I did basically left out and what I did. So yeah. So until then, thank you for joining me for my awesome basic, or of course, my basically late basic course movie review. So until then, this is Abraham. Thank you for watching, and sayonara.